Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. What's going on, everybody? I hope you're all having a great week. As you all know by now, it's been quite a whirlwind for me. From leaving for Santa Fe to at the 11th hour changing and postponing my trip for a couple of weeks due to circumstances that have arisen inside of this case. It's just been an absolute insane ride, folks, an insane ride. But what I can tell you is it's all going to be worthwhile. It is definitely all going to be worthwhile. In the coming weeks and the coming months, you're all going to see what I've been working on behind the scenes here. And it's going to become apparent that there's a lot more going on in a place like New Mexico than we've been told. And that's where I'm focused right now. Obviously, still, I'm focused on what was going on in Santa Fe. And that's definitely something that I'm never going to lose focus in until we get some answers. I've said it before and I'll say it again. We have some answers in Palm Beach. We have some answers in New York. And we definitely have some answers in the Virgin Islands. Do we have all the answers? Hell no. Hell no. Just scratching the surface, though. But at the very least, in those locales, we've at least scratched the surface. In a place like Santa Fe, well, there's really no information. We haven't had a barnstorm of reporters hitting the ground. The sources I have on the ground there say that they very rarely field any questions about anyone about Jeffrey Epstein at this point. So it's just been a crazy few days for me, and it's just kind of nuts to see where we're at here, right? To see what's going on here and to see that our work here on the podcast is impacting people, folks, all right? What we're doing here is, it's definitely having an impact. Even like I always say, just even if it's a small little impact for our little piece of the world, right? We're doing our little part. But it's obviously the message is getting out there, the podcast is getting out there, and coming in the future, we're going to have a lot more stuff going on behind the scenes, folks. I'm working on a paper right now, an article, and I'll be dropping that article within the next week, and it's going to just, be an overview of some of the things we've discussed on the podcast, some of the different areas that we've gone into the podcast. I think it's about time that I start producing a few articles, maybe one or two a month, maybe a little more depending on, on time restraints. I'm super busy as it is now with the podcast, and honestly, folks, after the last few days, I'm about to be a lot busier. So I'm going to try and do that, try and get that out, maybe set up some sort of personal web page where I can host my own articles there, and then you folks can come check them out or whatever it may be. So with all of that said, we have an article today from CBS News. And the article's headline is, Alleged Epstein Victim Recalls Harrowing Private Island Details. He had a gun strapped to his bedpost. Now, these are the sort of things that are coming out now that we haven't heard previously, right? It was always a coercion situation with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, how they'd coerce these girls with threats of violence. We've never heard about guns, though, so that's the first I've heard of that. And I'll tell you what, it doesn't shock me. It does not shock me at all that a man like Jeffrey Epstein would have a gun strapped to a bedpost. The man was just evil, folks, through and through, from the smallest bones in his body to the biggest. The man was an evil son of a bitch, and he got what was coming to him. The only thing is that it happened without him squealing like the stool pigeon he would have become. So it's, on one hand, I'm super excited that he's burning in the bottom layer of hell, but at the same time, obviously, I really wish we would have got to put the screws to him. I honestly, if it was up to me, I would have put that dude in some black site somewhere, waterboarded him, the whole entire thing, because if anyone is less than a human, it was that man, okay? That devious, disgusting prick of a human being, Jeffrey Epstein, was just the worst of the worst, folks. And I'll tell you right now, his buddy Ghislaine Maxwell, the brains behind the operation, this lady, she is absolutely, positively the epitome of evil. Everything about her offends my sensibilities, from that stupid smile to her smug, gross attitude about everything that's gone on. The way she talks about these victims, she's just an absolutely disgusting individual. That is, it makes me angrier and angrier by the day to know she's skulking around in the dark, avoiding justice right now, while these survivors have to live every day with the trauma that they suffered at this monster's hands. It really makes me mad, folks. Really makes me mad. All right, to the article. It's a CBS News article, and it was penned on January 21st at 8:58 a.m. There is no author, so I'm guessing it's a staff article. So there's no author to give credit to here, so we'll give it to the CBS staff writers in general. Make sure you guys go and check out the link. There's a little video there. You might want to click on that and check it out. So, to the article. The island of Little St. James off the coast of St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands was privately owned by the late Jeffrey Epstein until his death. The pedophile Jeffrey Epstein until his death is how that should read. Now, the local government is suing his estate for control of the land while also providing new details of how Epstein was able to get away with his alleged crimes for so long. Oh, well, they would know, considering they all had their palms greased. I find it kind of laughable that all of a sudden the Virgin Islands is standing up and saying, oh, well, wait a minute, Jeffrey Epstein used this as a base of operations and we're entitled to his property. No, you're not. The victims are. Keep your grimy hands off of it. If you want to, pop off an investigation and go after some of the people that were involved, hey, we're all for that. But if this is all about a money grab, well, you have another thing coming, because I have news for you. The only people that should be getting any of this money, any of this guy's money, are the victims that suffered at his hands. And folks, let me remind you, it was not just young girls either. There was other women that this man went after, and they deserve the same amount of respect as anybody else. And when I see people trash some of these women who have who were a little older when they were abused by Jeffrey Epstein, it just makes me shake my head. Could you be any more tone deaf? Could you be any more tone deaf? Breaking news, all right? People out there who like to talk crap about these girls, listen. When you have the power that a man like Jeffrey Epstein has, and say you're a 23 or 24-year-old girl, and you're just trying to make it in life, and this guy comes along with all these promises and brings you into his circle, and then the abuse starts, don't think for a minute any of these girls wanted that. These girls all thought that they were going to hang out with a guy who has the credibility, the shroud of credibility placed upon him by all of the other famous people he's hanging out with. So nobody goes to someone like Epstein's house and says, "Oh man, I'm gonna get molested here," right? Not at first, because of all the enabling around him. So to trash these girls that were 23, 24, 25, 26 maybe, when they were assaulted by Epstein, is absolutely disgusting in my opinion. And if I see any of that nonsense, believe me, I will be calling you out. It is straight trash. All right, straight trash. You want to talk garbage about anybody? Plenty of people in this case to talk about. Why don't you leave the victims out of it? CBS News correspondent Mola Lenghi got a closer look at the secluded island where Epstein was accused of trafficking underage girls. And regular women, folks. Let's not forget, there's regular women as well. I know it's that the most heinous crime in the world is trafficking of young girls. That is just beyond the pale. But let's not forget, in all the smoke and all the other nonsense going around the case, that there was actually women who were of age who were molested as well by this man. Epstein acquired Little St. James in 1998, purchasing nearby Great St. James 18 years later. Soon after, in 2010, the convicted pedophile registered as a sex offender in the Virgin Islands after serving time in Florida for procuring an underage girl for prostitution. The current lawsuit seeks to confiscate his property as well as the islands, valued at $86 million. Again, it's all a money grab. I'm sorry, folks. I'm going to call it what it is in the Virgin Islands. It's a straight-up money grab. They're looking to get this dough. And that means they'll be getting paid twice, right? Because we all know Epstein was greasing all of their palms. We all know why Epstein chose that place to go. He liked the seclusion, folks. He didn't want anyone prying. And what better place than an island like that with little to no oversight? The mysterious Little St. James, which at first glance looks like a tropical getaway, is only accessible by helicopter or private boat. The seclusion appears to be intentionally designed to make it hard for government officials to monitor Epstein's behavior, and even harder for the young girls allegedly brought there and looking to escape. I mean, think about that for a minute. You're brought to this island. You show up, there's all these nasty-ass old people there, a guy running around in his tighty whities, dudes looking like the Crypt Keeper, and you're this young girl, and you have no idea really what's what about life, and you're brought to this party, and you're abused by these sick bastards on this island, well, I try and swim off too. We've heard the story of the girl that wanted to swim away. And you blame her? It's absolutely disgusting, man. Authorities say the island was a place for Epstein to hide his criminal activity, so he felt that he could basically be protected. He could get away with it, said Denise George, Attorney General of the U.S. Virgin Islands. Yeah, why do you think it was that? Why do you think he was able to do that? He was being enabled by the politicians and the law people down in the Virgin Islands, folks. We all know he was greasing everybody's palm, so now they're trying to get in on the kickback twice, right? Well, we got the loot the first time around on the cuff. Now let's go ahead and take the whole entire kebab. We'll get ourselves $86 million. That'll do wonders for us down here. Personally, because you know they're not gonna. Even if they got the money, they wouldn't pump it into their neighborhoods or anything like that. We all know about these greedy sons of bitches. But the fact of the matter is, $86 million. Yeah, that needs to go to the victims, my man. All right, that needs to go to the victims. End of story. If the Virgin Islands has no business suing for any sort of property. George became Attorney General just months before Epstein's death by suicide last year, allegedly, and it is her office that is now suing the estate. Asked why it is now time to pursue charges against the late financier, pedophile, George countered, "All I have to say is, why not now?" Oh yeah, all you have to say, huh? We know why, because you're greedy. Prosecutor George, DA George, whatever you are, okay? Stop it. The money is not for you. You were not a victim. The island was not victimized, all right? You guys had a symbiotic relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Point blank, period. I cannot speak to what happened in the past, she said. What I do know is that because of Epstein's wealth and power, he was able to conceal a lot of this. Yeah, with the help of your government and the government in the continental United States and governments all over the world and their intelligence agencies, sure, he was able to conceal a lot of that. Why didn't you do anything? Why didn't your office, even though you weren't there, why didn't your predecessors take action? All of a sudden, now that he's dead and there's a lot of money going around, all of a sudden it's a thing now? Come on, stop. Very transparent. George described the unique challenges posed in monitoring Epstein in that area. They were stopped at the dock and they were told, no, this is as far as you can go because this is my private property and I would not allow you to go in any further, she said. Now imagine that. How did that work out for people in America? Imagine saying to the cops, I don't care. You're not coming in here. That's the end of it. Even if they had a warrant, even if it was public land, you would get smashed on so quickly, thrown into handcuffs and thrown underneath the jail. It wouldn't even be funny. But Jeffrey Epstein, no, he gets to sit there. He dictates the terms to the law once again. Why was this man able to dictate to the law what he wanted them to do? Ask yourselves that, folks, all right? You don't need me to tell you. You're all very intelligent in this audience. Nobody needs to lead you folks around anywhere. Everybody that's listening to this podcast, all very, very strong, individualistic people who have their own opinions, who will not be swayed by nonsense, all right? So miss us with that, please. Court documents allege Epstein flew into St. Thomas only airport, Cyril E. King Airport. The area that the private jets fly in, it's separate and apart from all the commercial flights. And that also helps with the concealment, George said. Look, the Virgin Islands is a place that one day I would love to go and just go to the airport and talk to people, right? Can you imagine the stories some of these people have down there, some of these people that worked for Jeffrey Epstein and, maybe driving girls to different places or driving people different places or people that they talked to when they went to restaurants, et cetera, et cetera. Can you imagine the stories these people have? From the airport, Epstein allegedly shuttled underage girls to the island using 2 helicopters. According to the complaint, air traffic controllers and other airport personnel reported seeing him with girls who appeared as young as 11 years old. Like I said, folks, why is that just coming out? Why weren't the reporters down at the airports, on the ground in these sort of places? I mean, look, I'm certainly no Harvard-trained journalist or a journalist at all, really. But this is basic journalism 101. Hit the ground, get to work. Everything's not just going to be given to you. These journalists all feel like their symbiotic relationship with the government is always going to give them the case. So they've forgotten how to be investigative journalists for the most part. It's very It's scary to think about that there's only a handful of great investigative journalists anymore, folks. Very scary to think about. George said Epstein controlled all communication and transportation on Little St. James, ensuring his alleged victims were essentially trapped. Remember, he owns a whole island, she said, so it wasn't a situation where a child or a young woman would be able to just break away and run down the street to the nearest police station. Oh, it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying to put yourself in that position. Can you imagine being one of these girls and knowing that there's no escape? You're stuck on this island and you just have to suffer through whatever these sick bastards are going to do to you? I can't even put myself in that position, folks. I can't even imagine the pain and the sorrow and the trauma to this day that these young ladies are suffering. And it's all because nobody wanted to stand up. It's all because there was no alpha male in the room to stand up and tell these sons of bitches to stop it and that they're going to be held responsible. Well, those days are long over. I'm here now. I'm a bull in the china shop. I will never let this rest, ever. The island is situated about 2 miles from St. Thomas, and the lawsuit states that one 15-year-old alleged victim was so desperate to escape that she tried to swim away. Can you imagine? Just think about that for a minute. I know I keep telling you to go back and put yourself in their shoes, and it's pretty rough to even think stuff like that. But, man, imagine being this young girl, and you're so desperate to get away from these people that you're willing to swim in shark-infested waters all the way back to the United States if that's what it takes. Absolutely heart-wrenching to think about. Absolutely the anger it elicits inside of me. I can't even explain to you, folks. There's not enough words for me to explain to you how angry this makes me. Another of Epstein's alleged victims, speaking to CBS News on the condition of anonymity, described what she said had happened to her. He raped me. He brought me off the island to his office in St. Thomas, and he actually raped me in his office. He also trapped me in his bedroom on the island where he had a gun strapped to his bedpost. I couldn't leave. The only means of getting off the island was either helicopter or boat. Again, folks, think about this. I mean, this is the kind of thing you see in like thriller movies, right? Where you're just like, you're like, oh my God, I can't imagine if this ever really happened. Well, this really did happen. To these girls, those sort of things that you and I sit around and say, man, imagine that shit. It's really happened to them, folks. And compassion needs to be shown, right? It's disgusting to me to see people like Dershowitz still ripping these girls in the media. It makes me so angry that a man like that thinks he can get away with that sort of stuff. It's just beyond the pale. When asked about George's lawsuit, the victim said, "I'm actually quite confused by it. Why now? It's been a little bit. It's late in the game, and to me it's sort of last minute, and if they knew about what he was up to, then why didn't they try to stop him before?" I agree with with the victim there. Look, I said the same thing. These guys, it's very transparent what's going on here. This is a money grab of all money grabs. They're all they're looking for is the money here. They're not looking to hold anybody responsible. If they were looking to hold anyone responsible, his co-conspirators would be named in that. But nope, all they want is that island. All they want is the money. And that's certainly the way it seems to me. And that's certainly what my opinion is of the situation. Attorney Jordan Merson represents several alleged victims suing Epstein's estate. He has encouraged others to come forward and file complaints before the legal window closes. For those people who think they have more time than March 12, 2020, they may be wrong, and they may never get their chance at justice if they do not come forward now, Merson said. So March 12th, 2020 is the last day that people can come forward about Jeffrey Epstein in that year window. So if you're listening out there and you were part of this and Jeffrey Epstein abused you, you still have time. Speak up, please. Now is the time for you to get the justice that you deserve. Now is the time, and I'll tell you, make sure that you don't stay silent if this man attacked you or hurt you in some way. Speak to somebody you trust. Call somebody you trust. Talk to a lawyer, and then have the lawyer contact the police or whatever it is if you want to, be anonymous. And I completely understand that. I've said that from the beginning. My sources in Santa Fe don't even want to go on record because they're still, to this day, they fear that there'll be blowback. That's how deep this man's tentacles were dug in, right? That's how deep his tentacles were dug in. And that explains why people are always so scared to talk about the situation. And never mind guys like Dershowitz and the other high-profile folks who have a ton of money and will litigate you into oblivion. That's the biggest fear with the media, in my opinion, or else they'd be going hard after Dershowitz. They don't want to get sued. And they're cowards, really what it comes down to. In a statement to CBS News, Epstein's estate refuted claims that it is trying to conceal any alleged criminal activities through a victims' compensation fund it wants to set up. The statement said anyone participating in the program would have no obligation to keep their claim confidential. I don't know enough about victims' claims and how all of that stuff works yet. I'm going to do some research into that, so I don't have too big of an opinion on that. But what I do think is this, that there should be some sort of fund. Like I said, if this was the perfect world and I had Bill Gates kind of money, I would break every single one of these accusers off. And I wouldn't even make them be at the mercy of the courts and going through all of this nonsense. Because we see already what's going on with the Virgin Islands. They're trying to get their piece. Everybody's going to try and get their piece. And what's going to be left for the victims in the end? So I hope that everything, the lawyers are going to do the right thing for sure. I hope that they're going to make sure that these victims are compensated correctly. And really though, what needs to happen, besides the compensation, which is a must at this point for the trauma suffered, but what really must happen to truly give these girls closure, to truly give the citizens of this country a little bit of faith in the the Department of Justice, is Ghislaine Maxwell needs to be held accountable, folks. She is our white whale. She needs to be held accountable. She was the brains behind Jeffrey Epstein's beast. He was the vehicle that they drove to get where they were going. But Ghislaine Maxwell was piloting that vehicle, in my opinion. So for true justice to really be slapped in this case, it needs to start with Ghislaine Maxwell and then the co-conspirators around her. All right, folks, if you'd like to contact me, you could do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. And we will be back later on for an evolution episode and a daily drop. If you'd like to help support the podcast, you can do that by clicking on the GoFundMe link in the description box. All right, everybody, enjoy your Tuesday, and I will talk to you in a few hours.